I've always been, just like a loner in that way, kind of going through learning about myself in the shadows. And so, and so,
Ooh, baby, baby, please don't you be such a tease. If it's loving that you want from me, I got boo-boo. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay.
whew. Hey, so, I am, first of all, this is kind of my first time documenting in this way, on these trips that I've decided to take. So I guess I'll kind of do a bit of a backstory before I go into the reason for this video. But yeah, it's 2022. Back in March of 2022, around my birthday, I decided to up and quit my job working as an independent insurance adjuster, and which was just draining so much of my time and my energy. Even though it was paying me well, I just felt like I direly needed some time to devote to myself and really coming back to myself and preparing myself for what I feel are major things that are about to occur in my life and my career. And yeah, I didn't know the exact reason for me quitting the job and then deciding to leave my parents' house where I was living, and to just kind of go off with no like set destination in mind. I didn't know the exact reason, but I knew that it had to be done because it had been on my spirit for a very long time, and it had started to become a loud voice in my head, if you would, or just a reverberating energy in my spirit, however you want to put it. It just became too hard to ignore, and I knew I had to do something drastic. So I did all of the things. I quit my job. I packed up my life, literally everything that I have to my name, and just threw it in my car, and I just took to the road. I had met a few friends over the past roughly 2 years online during COVID through a karaoke app, Smule, that have become a major catalyst, a turning point for me in terms of re-emerging and redefining my narrative and just my overall, like just my definition of myself and where I see my life being in a solidified, stabilized way, right? Because I definitely did not feel stable. I have not felt fulfilled for a while, probably since if I'm being honest, since 2010, 2011, around that time, which is crazy because around that time, I had broken up with who I saw as the love of my life, a guy that I had, planned on marrying and starting a family. We had made all of the plans, But that was also a time where I during the time I was with him, that I had given up on myself in terms of where I wanted to be since I was a child. I kind of given up on my music. I didn't really write during that relationship or record. I just kind of, put that to the side and focused on like, okay, I want the relationship and I want this to work. And I put all of my focus and energy into him, and, it just sent me down a spiral of, unhealthy habits and coping mechanisms that I would get into to, I guess, kind of keep myself in this state of mind, this place of contrived homeostasis, like just thinking that, these are things that can fulfill me. I had been looking and it just it wasn't happening, and it hasn't happened for a long time, When I was younger, I would find it in music, but I was hiding part of myself and my sexuality. I met the love of my life, and just this guy who represented what it is that I would love to look for in a partner. But then I gave up on my childhood dream, and then picked up these compulsive behaviors and addictions. Trying to cope with that. And you know what? I'm actually kind of just realizing this as I'm speaking it, that I had been constantly replacing things with one another in points of my life. Like, rather than integrating, I was, constantly, replacing. And then the loss of the one thing would, send me into this whirlwind of emotions, and then I would, go to a compulsion, some kind of obsessive compulsion, whether it be my eating habits, or just things in terms of relating, namely sex. And so 2011 we broke up, and at that moment I moved in with my parents, and I think I was 24 at the time. I don't even feel like doing the math, really. I'm 36 now in 2022, so but 2011 I moved in with my parents, and had been there since, in that same house. I had moved back to my childhood, the childhood place of birth, New Orleans, which is also a place that, as a child, if I'm being honest, I wanted out of. That environment didn't feel conducive for me for some reason. Well, for many reasons. It just didn't feel like me, Yeah. And, as a child, I remember saying, I don't ever want to come back here. And, that time period in my life brought me back there. And, so 2011 all the way to 2022, 11 years of being back in that place. And so many things I kind of went through, learned about myself. I gotten into another relationship, and God, I just, my heart goes out to him for, you know, what he's had to endure for me. Of course, you know, it was every relationship is two-sided, it's never one-sided, but I'm just going to speak on my part, you know, just everything I'm learning for myself. His part, that's for him to understand, right? But yeah, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready, or maybe, you know, I was ready in that time period to learn what it was I was supposed to learn. But, you know, I picked up even more compulsion in terms of eating and having sex, just because I wasn't fulfilled in that relationship. And if I'm being honest with myself, I don't think I ever was intending to be. I was still in a state of mind where I was figuring out what was it that I actually wanted. I, you know, had just, I had broken up with who I thought was going to be my forever, and I had taken it seriously in my own way. I could say I took it seriously, but, you know, I did a lot of wrong in that relationship, and, you know, cheating and just not taking it seriously, you know. And I know I'm jumping all over the place, but it's okay, because that's what this is for. And I don't even know if this will be edited. It probably will at some point, but I may even just throw this on YouTube as just something to just try out, telling my story and seeing how it goes. But yeah, I'm saying all of that to say, in the relationship that I had gotten into when I moved back to New Orleans, you know, I was in a state of mind to commit myself, and the relationship kind of happened. It wasn't something that I was looking for, that I had, you know, said in my head, like, okay, I'm ready to date. I had just seen my ex for the first time in years. You know, we had been broken up for 3 years. So I mean, I felt like it was a healthy thing that I had moved on, and I could, you know, give my time to somebody else. But I had just seen him kind of for the first time, and I was able to tell him, it's like, yeah, I'm finally over you, or whatever. And I think speaking those words is what gave me the permission to just like let someone else in. And the next guy, just, he was so sure about me. He was so ready for all of the things, and I wasn't. And I was fearful, because there were signs that that there were things to kind of look out for. Like, I wasn't sure if I was going to be safe in this relationship. I wasn't sure if I felt confident and protected and all of the things. I just didn't feel good about it, but I just went along with it because I did like him. I loved him. I obviously I grew to love him, and I was attracted to him, and I liked the way that he treated me. And I think that was probably the main thing. It's just like the way that he treated me, you know. It was just like this sense that someone would do anything for you, but also with that idea that someone would do anything for you when they don't live up to that expectation and do something behind your back that is not in accordance with how they present themselves to you in your face. It sent me on a really, really, really tough cycle. Sent me down a really tough cycle. Oh my God. Oh my God. He had begun cheating on me and lying to me, and it was happening often, and I'd become obsessive about catching him in it, because every time I would bring it up to him, it was just like he was just really good at explaining it away, or just, I don't know, whatever, and it just brought up wounds in me, wounds from childhood with my father and men in general, about my self-worth, and like, if I'm worthy enough to have somebody to just see me and my value without, without pretense, or just without anything else blocking the view, just like, see me, So it's just like when he would cheat on me, it would bring back all of those feelings, and I just felt unworthy. So I would eat more. I gained so much weight to the point where I was morbidly obese. I'd always been on a thicker side. I'm, of a muscular figure, and I'm brawny, wide-shouldered, and my biological father was a professional football player, so those genes definitely passed down to me. Not the football, but the body. I'm really not that into sports, but so I just started to really hate myself, because I saw myself as unworthy. I had always been dating guys, or, he was, a smaller guy. He was tall but slim, and always was slim throughout our relationship. So while I'm like ballooning up, he's like still there, and whenever we go places and stuff, he gets stares and looks, and I feel jealous. And then when he would cheat on me, I had to obsess about, like, who did you cheat with? I need to see what they look like, and why are they not big? Why don't they look like me at least? Like, these were things that I would think. And it just became like this odd compulsion. So now there's the eating obsessively, and now there's, obsessively spying on my partner, and, wanting to understand his compulsions and how they contributed to me and my issues with self-worth. And then there was the sex. It's like, from seeing what he was doing, I just given myself permission to become more promiscuous myself. And I just did reckless things. And as time grew, so did my compulsions. And yeah, so I guess I wanted to preface with all of that, because it's like once I finally got out of that relationship, it had come to this point where it's just like, oh my God, I am so incredibly depressed. I'm so incredibly depressed, like more than I've ever been in my life, and I've always been a um, a pensive person. Even as a child, I spent a lot of time alone, because I was hiding so much. I felt so different that no one would understand me, um, and no one was there to kind of um, help guide me through the changes that I was undergoing, because it's just like, of course, the sexuality alone, it was just something that was just unspoken of. And um even at a time, um I had to go through, you know my mom, uh when we would talk about it, because she knew, um sometimes it kind of came off from her like it was a phase, right? Whenever we would talk about it, or she would bring it up whenever we were alone, she was like, well, are you still having those feelings? And I just never wanted to talk about it, so I was just like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. Because she had found porn and stuff like that. So just the typical story of how moms find out about their sons, I guess. And whenever she would try to talk to me about it, I don't know, I just always kind of got this feeling that she was, attempting to just help me rationalize it as just something that I was just going through at the time. And so, and I'm not saying that's what her intentions were. Once again, anyone who I speak of, their experience is their experience. And I'm not saying anything to create any kind of narrative about their character, right? This is my experience that I'm speaking of. So it's very important for me to be clear about that, and how my experience of these people affected me psychologically. So, yeah. But I've always been, just like a loner in that way, kind of going through learning about myself in the shadows. And so, and so, yeah. um, so yeah, breaking up with him, it had just gotten to a point when I was, I was turning 30, and I just was just at this point where I was just like, man, I don't want to live in secret anymore. I don't want to live for other people. I want to like really do the work to understand what's wrong with me, or what is making it so hard for me to accept myself fully and live my full experience. So I got away from it all. I got away from everybody. I had started working as an insurance adjuster, and I would travel the country. And that was a time where I was able to kind of delve into myself and ask the tough questions and really kind of separate myself from everybody and everybody's influence, so I could really start facing my demons and just name them, right? It was important to name them. And at that time period, I started writing music again. And I was writing the most honest music I've ever written in my life. Typically, my songs would just be about love and relationships and sex and heartbreak and, but from a standpoint of just like, talking about it on a surface level. But this music was autobiographical. It was doing the work that I was doing psychologically and just, with myself. I was able to write about it. And I was so happy that that process was happening and that I was getting this stuff out, right? I was happy for that. And yeah, so I wrote the project, 8, the number 8, and WHOISTHEO, that's my stage name. So, I mean, if you want to check out the music that I wrote, you can look that up on all streaming platforms, the number 8 by WHOISTHEO. That's one word, WHOISTHEO. But yeah, it felt good to write the music, but I wrote the music in like from a span of time of like between 2016 and 2018, I guess, 2019. And 2019 is when I started to record the recording process and completed the recording process. But I was afraid to put it out because it was so personal. But then COVID, the lockdowns happened, and I felt like I was, I was starting to get more signs, like spiritually, like I would see repeating numbers all the time. The number 1111 was namely just the one following me everywhere. 1111 everywhere. It started gradually, and then it would just intensify every single day. It was just like bam, bam. It would always show up. And I looked it up and realized that that's just letting me know that a spiritual presence is with me. And yeah, so I had a dream one night that or like a call to release the project on 11/11, because I was still holding on to it. I had wanted to make a movie, like I had all these plans, and so I was just kind of holding myself back from releasing it and I was stalling because I was just like, okay, I want to have a rollout, but it just was on my spirit to just do it. And the date came, November 11th, 2020, and I didn't even understand like the significance other than the 11/11. But when I thought about it after the fact, after I released it, 11/11/2020, in numerology, that number equals 8, And so it's just like, man, that is crazy, how the synchronicity of that whole project aligned. 11/11, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 is 4. 2020, 2 + 2 + 0 and 0, right, is 4. 4 + 4 is 8. And so it's just like, yeah, I was just like, wow, that's really wild how that happened. And then from that moment forward, when I did release the project, people received it so well. The people who knew about it, like, I'm still working on trying to expand my reach with people, but yeah, people received it really well, and they wanted to tell me their stories, how they too, because I talked about depression, I talked about shadow work, and having moments where you talk really bad to yourself behind closed doors. I talked about sexual trauma and sex addiction, and using sex as a replacement for love when you don't feel loved by others. I talked about irresponsibility and making the same mistakes over and over again, compulsive behaviors, but then wanting to come back and apologize about it and just continue the cycle over and over again. I talked about codependency in relationships, and not being able to cope when the person that you have attached yourself to is not around. You lose control. I've talked about shame behind all of the decisions you made in your life, and having to have that day of reckoning where you have to face all of that, and it's just like you have to face it. You now know that it's healthy to face it, that you are protected, and there's this spiritual sense of it all. Your soul is calling you, but then there's the ego, and it's just like, you fight yourself to, angel and the devil, I guess, whatever. And I talked about rebirth and, wanting to see the light, and, having that moment of just like surrender. And then I talked about understanding the whole journey and realizing that the journey starts with acceptance and truth, and just accepting your truth, facing yourself, and just taking it step by step, and understanding that you are the culprit. You're the center of your universe. So the decisions that you make are what affect your experience. And so it's just like, make decisions genuinely for yourself and take that time out to truly get to know yourself. And so the reason why I call the project 8 is just because I'm really into the concept of duality and accepting your darkness, not being fearful of it, because I believe we have, as a society, have been conditioned to believe that darkness and evil or shadow aspects, we've been taught that there's a clear divide between the is and the ain't, or whatever. I don't know, just that there's clear divides. In the world, everything moves in cycles of 2. You know what I'm saying? We have our zeros and our ones. Everything is created around the zeros and the ones. Literally everything. And so the masculine and feminine, there's up, there's down, there's in, there's out. Like, everything has duality. And I just believe that what I've learned is, like, you have to come into acceptance of that. You can't deny any part of that, because it's all you. And if you deny part of it, you're denying part of yourself. And that's where a lot of our triggers come from. That's where a lot of the issues in the world as a whole come from, because we're always looking for someone to blame, some way to set ourselves apart from good and bad, when it's just like, why not just accept bad? What we perceive as, like, you know, the negative energy. You know, I always use this idea of the battery having positive and negative charge, and both are needed in order to make anything move. You know, you need the negative and the positive. They're both equally important. In order to create anything, you create a child, to create a new life, you have to have a, you know, a man and a woman, you know, a woman and a man, a 0 and a 1, right? And I would do but I may put this on YouTube, and so I'm not going to go into all of that, but you all understand there's the 0s and there's the 1s. Think about it. You know what I'm saying? And it's just that simple. You have to accept them both as equal, because the two are needed in order to create anything. And that doesn't just go, I'm not even gonna get into all of that, because of course when we think of men and women, it's like you need a man and a woman. Of course, I don't agree with that. Being a gay man, obviously I believe in masculine and feminine energy, right? There's a difference. But yeah, so I just believe we have to learn the next iteration in life for us, especially as we are entering into the age of Aquarius, and which is the age of knowledge and knowing and understanding. We have to stop lying to ourselves and just trying to make ourselves believe that something is wrong. Nothing is wrong. It's all necessary. And when you are able to accept everything that is simply as it is, then you would be able to accept yourself more authentically. And it's a process. It's definitely a process. But it's a process that I think we have to undergo. Not even think, I know we have to undergo.